everybody, and hello, Nate.
Hey,
I
I
gotcha.
was I was responding to a text. Hey, everybody, welcome back to What's This Bird Live? That's Greg. I'm Nate. We're from the American Birding Association. We're here, well, once again, to talk to all y'all on the internet about birds, bird identification, birding, whatever you guys have in mind. Lots of great stuff going on. Lots of cool birds around. Lots of great stories around. Lots of cool and weird birds being seen and posting on our What's This Bird
It
group. I was
it
trying to get through without taking a breath, and I failed.
yes, it is. It is summer now, and it is the term time. Blah, blah, blah. It is the time of weird bird plumages
Yeah, it's weird bird
and
plumages for
baby
sure.
birds and all that kind of stuff.
For
Um,
sure, I was out running a breeding bird survey this morning, even, and I got on it a little bit later than I usually do this year for a number of different reasons. But anyway, I'm gonna have to cram them all together. But there were a lot of baby birds, a lot more baby birds than I usually see, even running it like a week and a half earlier as I usually
hmm.
do. And yeah, baby crows all over the place, baby gnatcatchers, baby robins, baby cardinals. I mean, they were all over the place. It was something. It was like more birds to see than I usually get on a breeding bird
Yeah.
survey, where I usually am just stopping and listening for 3 minutes and moving on.
It's so you mentioned crows, and my mind went to a tangent. I've got this family of
Crows will do
crows
that.
nesting on our block, and we also have a neighbor that has an outdoor cat, and that's a whole nother story. Anyway, the crows have discovered this cat, and they
Mm-hmm.
harass it. They harass it all day long. Well, now
Yeah,
they've gone around the neighborhood and they've discovered all the other cats, and they just go around the neighborhood harassing cats all day long.
it's hilarious.
It's like you can
Yeah,
hear them over there, over here, over there. Yeah, it's.
gotta have something to
Anyways,
do. Yeah,
yeah,
while away
yeah.
these
Well,
long
yeah. What?
days.
Yeah. I mean, crows. They're basically living life to play.
Yeah.
Um, so, what we do here is I grab some images from our What's This Bird group on Facebook, which
Yep.
is where you can drop pictures or descriptions or an audio file or anything. And we will try to identify that bird for you. And the group has a lot of great birders in it, and that ID usually comes pretty darn quick.
Yeah, it's
Um,
a great group, and one of the fun things about that group is that it's a live community of bird
right.
identification and teaching people how to bird and building people's birding toolboxes. And that's every once in a while we get some photos that we'd like to kind of focus on. Sometimes seasonally appropriate, sometimes just a weird photo that gets out there
Yeah.
and causes a lot of consternation. And then we bring it over and um, and we
And
talk
we've got
about it
a
here. That's what we do.
Yeah, and we've got a little bit of both of that going on. Also, what we do here is, yes, this is live, and we are
Live.
watching
I'm
the
actually
comments in
here.
YouTube and Facebook. So if you've got a question or something to say, or just want to give a shout out, like Len Kopka, hi Len, on Facebook, just drop a comment, and we will try to get to it as best we can.
Yeah,
Um,
we got some likes here, some hellos on YouTube. I'll run through them. Nancy Kitchen from New York, Scott Hickman from the upstate of Michigan, James David from Greensboro, just down the road from me, evidently. Elizabeth Alton, you maybe you didn't see me. I was driving my car around Rockingham County this morning doing my breeding bird survey. Nicole Yee, Buddy Bamble from Beaufort, South Carolina, Josh Fecto from Maine, Vinod Iyer from India, all the way. It's a 12 hours difference there. It seems like
yeah,
you're on it must be early in the morning over there. Chris Ortega, hey Chris, good to see you. R.I. Davio from NYC. Thanks everybody for joining us. We're here. We're ready to
yeah.
talk birds here in this late June, on the eve of what will be some pretty uncomfortable temperatures for humans and birds
Oh,
alike. I
yeah.
wonder what that will mean for vagrant birds. I'm a little curious to see. It seems like
One in,
that might push some things up
and one in
your way.
particular. Well, yeah. Also, quick hi to Drive from Minnesota and
Hey,
Tom from Michigan,
we
Sandy
got two
from
from up green.
Florida. Oh,
Chris
Chris Sloan, our
Sloan.
ABA board member from Nashville, is in the house. So yeah, this week was a fun one for me. I got a text from my longtime birding buddy Amar Ayash, who I think many of you know as the author
The
of
Gull Guide.
the recent bestseller, The Gull Guide, which I have
The Gull
sitting right
Guide
over
from the
here.
Gull Guide.
Yeah, The Gull Guide from the Gull Guy. Um, and his story is kind of a fun one. I won't get into it now, but the way he got into gulls through mathematics and sort of it's a cool story. But anyways, he texted me on Monday night and asked if I had any interest in going up to see the kelp gull that he discovered, and that's a cool story in itself because he didn't actually discover the bird. The bird had been known for 2 years.
Yeah,
it
2 years. I thought it was one.
No,
oh
well,
my gosh.
I mean, it nested up there last year.
So 2023, it was there.
It nested there in 2024.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then again in 2025, in the exact same spot. And the people. Now I will say this: it's hard to get a good look, and most of the viewing was done from this expressway bridge, and you stop there for a few minutes, and the cops are going to get you and make you move. But then I guess it was figured out that you could see that rooftop from underneath the bridge, and there was actually access there. But anyway, so yeah, that bird was up there. Now this is the second year, and was thought to be a great blackback gull. And Amar was up on top of the bridge and managed to get a couple pictures of it shifting around on the nest. And it's like the bird had a really black back, but it's hard, but it had yellow. Yeah. But then when it shifted his yellow legs, it's like, oh, that is not a great blackback gull. And if it was a lesser, that would be the first nesting record of lesser blackback gull in the Great Lakes.
Yeah,
or anywhere
and the
outside
lessers
of Appledore
really
that I know of.
The lessers with the really black backs are not the ones that turn up in North America. Those are the nominate ones. The ones we get are the Grailsea, I believe, and they're the like real slate gray, really dark gray, but not black.
Not black like that. Yeah. He got some decent pictures of it, went back, got more looks at it, and just like, boy, this is a kelp gull. Then you got to figure out, all right, is it one of the chandelure gulls, one of the hybrids or back crosses? And this bird, it looks pure. I mean, it's just,
kelp gull, such a weird bird. South American, if people are curious, but with a pattern of vagrancy. Well, I don't know if it's a pattern. They've shown up as a vagrant in the ABA area somewhat regularly. But in like the weirdest places, like along the Gulf Coast, the chandelure gulls that you were talking about, Greg.
Right.
There are records in the Eastern Great Lakes. The Western around the Great Lakes.
Around the Great Lakes.
There are records for Colorado. There's a couple for California. Like this was a weird bird. It almost makes you wonder, with like the scattered records all over the place, if this isn't something that isn't getting overlooked a lot. As you said, this bird was overlooked for more than 12 months.
If it's standing out on a breakwater and you can't really make out back up a little bit. The leg color, if you see it clearly, it's pretty distinct. It's this chalky kind of putty green yellow color. This time of year, it's more yellow because the birds are full of testosterone. They're breeding.
Not as yellow as like a lesserback.
But
like not as bright.
It's not as bright yellow as a lesser blackback gull.
Yeah, Shrimpy from Maryland, Lori calling it.
Shrimpy, if the bird
that was in Maryland. Yeah.
But if the bird is out on a breakwater or something and you can't really see it it'd be hard because it's got a big honking bill. It's a big hefty bird.
It's shaped more like a great blackback than a lesserback for sure.
Yes.
It's a chunky gull, whereas lesserback is kind of svelte and long winged and pointy.
Yeah, so we got there Tuesday at noon, and sadly, it appeared that the chick that it was raising with an American herring gull had died.
Wow. Yeah, high risk, low fitness.
But then the next day, the kelp gull was photographed copulating with an American herring gull, so he isn't giving up. It looks like he's going to be there for a while.
Well, it has been. That's pretty wild story. And Shrimpy's a great example of this, because Shrimpy stuck around for a long time in Ocean City, Maryland, and there's reason to think that this bird could as well. It seems like it's going to stay put. We've got this thing where rarities are staying put for very, very long periods of time these days. It's very odd. Stellar sea eagle, cattle tyrant, southern lapwing. Like all these birds are just like sticking out for
Well, yeah,
months
and
and
the
months and months, which is so
mottled
bonkers.
owls, mottled owl and gray
Mottled owls
jay have. I mean,
for
I would call that a range
yeah,
expansion at this point.
almost
The brown
yeah
jays.
for
Well, the brown
sure.
jays are breeding.
Yeah, well, they do from time to time though. That wouldn't be terribly unusual.
Yeah, but
Mottled
I
owl
mean,
is
they're
wild.
they're. I think they're unless something happens, they're established. It
Well,
seems,
I'd like to
or on their
see them
on
establish
their
themselves outside of that park.
on their way. Well, there's not. I mean, if you've ever been there, there's not a lot of habitat. I mean, you've got
Yeah.
these. I
Oh,
mean,
north of the river.
I mean, north of there a little bit and south a little bit, but on there's just not a lot of habitat along the river there. It's just right on the river, and you go quarter mile away from the river, and it's just nothing.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Onion fields.
a
We have
quick-
vamped for a while.
yes,
Greg.
we have. We have a quick hi to Gara from Florida and Christy from Tennessee.
Absolutely.
But
People are comparing temperatures here on YouTube. 111 in Tucson, 116 in Phoenix. Good Lord. It's going to be 99 here in Greensboro next week. I'm not looking forward to
yeah, it's going to be in the upper 90s, 100 degrees here in Chicago tomorrow, Sunday and Monday. Anyways, Nate,
Maybe
tell
it'll
us
bring
about
some
this week's.
black-bellied whistling ducks. Yeah, this week's podcast. We welcome back. We welcome Whitney Side Nakashima. It's an interview that I did a couple years ago. I wanted to bring it back. It's a fun one. She talks about how the structure and evolution of bird colors influences things we know about taxonomy and all that stuff. It's fascinating. And also at the beginning there, there's a story, a new content, a story about a way that birders were able to make some grassroots conservation action work at the South Padre Island Convention Center. You'll have to listen to that. A lot of birders down in South Texas have been working on that for the better part of a year. Over a year, trying to prevent the expansion that would wipe out this really wonderful piece of native habitat that's adjacent to the convention center, and they were successful at least for now, with help from the Cameron County Board of Commissioners. And it's a great story, and congratulations to all those birders who've been working on that for so long.
Cool. So, Nate, I wasn't expecting to talk about gulls as much as we wound up talking about gulls, but since we're
We
here,
didn't talk about identifying them. We talked about going to see a weird one.
well, here's a weird one.
Yeah.
Actually, not
Are
that
there
weird.
normal ones this time of year? This time of
This
year,
is a normal-
gulls tend to look very rough.
This is a normal weird one.
Yeah.
And June and July is the time of manky gulls. Their plumage is all beat up. The birds that aren't breeding spend time loafing around on beaches and just not using those feathers that are all beat up as much as possible. And, and
salt
getting
water
bleached.
is salt water, it does a number on just about everything that it touches, as anyone who lives close to the coast can attest to. Feathers no exception. Gulls, seabirds just in general tend to look extremely beat up once we get to midsummer and beyond, just because they're close to that salt spray all the time. It really wears them down. And this bird, this is an ugly looking gull, Greg. I'm not gonna sugarcoat
all
it.
in the eye of the beholder, man. It's all in the eye
I guess
of the
I'm not much of a guller, but when I look at the gull, the first things that I like to pay attention to are the legs and the bill, the colors in the legs and the bill. This one's got kind of pink legs, dull pink legs. It's got a bicolored bill, which isn't all that unusual for youngish gulls. But I have my gull that I go to first. A couple species that I would go to first, depending on the size of the gull. And then if it looks different, then I'll go farther. But I don't always go farther than that when it comes to gull identification. Greg, what does your practiced eye see when you're looking at this gull?
Well, the first thing I was to say with gulls that are not adults, you want to try to figure out its age as close to possible, and big gulls, big white-headed gulls like what we're looking at here versus the smaller dark-headed gulls like Bonapartes and Franklins and things like that. The big white-headed gulls, they're a 4-year bird. So that is, it takes them 4 years to acquire that adult plumage that we know so well. So kind of the first step is to figure out roughly in its life cycle where it is. And so you'll see in the field guides, they show first cycle, second cycle, third cycle. But then, like we talked about last week with the Orioles, there's a whole lot of in between.
Yeah.
And then also for whatever reason, a lot of birds will hang on to plumage that is, so you'll get a second cycle bird that's hanging on to first cycle scapulars or first cycle coverts or whatever. So you get this kind of mixture and it gets all mixed up. What we're looking at here, I think, is a second year bird.
That's what I would guess based on
because it's got a lot of white.
The splotchiness. The
Right, and
splotchiness
it's
on
got
the
a
back.
lot of white.
And a lot of white. Yeah, so
Yeah.
the first year golds are the ones that are kind of smudgy gray brown all over, and they tend to get more white as they get older. But it is sort of retaining that smudgy gray brown mottled look on the back and the wings. What are those? The scaps, the mantle, the tertials, all that stuff. But it is white on the head and white on the breast, which is usually the first thing that turns. So I would agree, Greg. This does look like a second year goal or second cycle or however you want to do it. If it were a third year, I would expect to see more of a kind of a uniform color on the mantle at very least.
It would look more. It would look more like the adult plumage.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sort of like in between. It's not brown and it's not gray and white, but it's kind of in between. That's second year going into third, coming out of first, wherever it is in that line.
Yeah.
But we'll get a couple of birds. Well, a couple of things out of the way first of all. Lesser and great black-backed gull. We can tell that this is not either one of those, mostly because of the bill. The bill would be all black in a great black-backed gull. It would be mostly black at this age in a lesser black-backed, but also the wing panel. The wing panel in both of the black-backed gulls and the back are dark and freckled and very patterned.
Yeah,
so
not pale. Yeah.
So really, and the discussion on what's this bird, and I tend to sort of lean into the discussion that happened in the chat about the bird. The poster couldn't tell if it was a ring-billed or a herring, and
yeah, I mean, I can sort of see that. I mean, from the
So-
plumage perspective, plumage alone,
right.
I could see it looks a little bit like one of those second-year ring-billed gulls. Now, ring-billed is a 3-year gull, not a 4-year gull.
Correct.
So they're a little bit different.
Correct.
But
So-
structurally, I'm not seeing it because ring-billed gull is. Are we going to show us a composite?
I am, yeah, and I wanted to just kind of like, because we've had some gull discussions here with all of the white-headed gulls where it goes. I really wanted to just get those two out of the way.
We run out of time.
So when you're the bird that in question is the one at the lower left here, and so up at the top there we have herring gull, American herring gull in a early second cycle plumage. That sort of in the middle. It's got a lot of first cycle plumage on it. You can see, it's brown all and kind of mottled all over the place. The white head is starting to come in, but it's got that bicolored bill.
And it's starting to get a little bit gray on the back too.
It's starting to get a little gray on the back. A little bit further along in that year, they'll bleach out the way that the one at the top right is.
Thank you. Seawater and sunlight. Direct sunlight.
Still got a little bit of a bicolored bill. That's extremely variable. Eye color is variable. I've seen first cycle appearing birds or a bird just like this one, mostly first cycle with some second cycle plumage coming in with glaring yellow eyes and a bright yellow bill.
That's why I never use eye color, Greg.
Yeah.
Never, not once. It never occurs to me to use it, honestly. That's the main reason.
But yeah, I mean, if you look at the structure, American herring gull is kind of a big, kind of a somewhat heavy-bodied bird with relatively short wings compared to ring-billed. Ring-billed is much more slender. If they're side by side, it's easy because there's a size
ring-billed
difference.
gull's like a third the size of a herring gull. Third
But
the
if
mass,
they're not-
half the side, third the mass.
But if it's all by itself on the beach, you don't have that size comparison to make, and it can be difficult. But proportionally, the bill size, ring-billed gull has a more dainty bill. Even a big-billed ring-billed gull has a more dainty bill. It's almost always more patterned, especially in first cycle. There's a lot of pattern going on. And in getting into the second year, ring-billed gull goes from that heavily patterned brown-looking bird to almost an adult-looking bird pretty quickly.
Yeah, like that. Yeah.
So you don't really see that messed up in between that you get in herring gull. You don't really see that in a ring-billed. Now the reason that I included California gull up there is because
You wish they all could be California gull?
I do. They can be found in the Great Lakes at almost any time of the year. And with more people looking at gulls, there's more California gulls being found. The bicolored bill of the bird in question, that would, when you look at the field guides, that kind of bluish, grayish bill with a black tip, it makes you think California gull. California gull,
it crossed my mind. As someone that does not see California gull at all, but I thought you might be trying to trick me. That's why.
No, by the time California gull starts getting any gray plumage, the legs turn to that chalky bluish green, and will eventually turn greenish yellow as the bird becomes an adult. California gull also has longer wings than a herring gull. It's in between size between herring gull and ring-billed. Extremely variable. They can be as big as herring gulls or almost as small as ring-billed gulls. They tend to have a longer, uniquely, the California gull I picked here has kind of a short bill for a Cali gull, whereas the herring gull in question, which is an American herring gull at the lower left, it's got kind of a big honking bill.
Herring
but
gull always has a big honking bill.
It's look at the one in the center top. That's got kind of a dainty bill for a herring gull. But they're extremely variable. So you got to kind of put all of the pieces together. California gull almost always, pretty much always, shows that dark brown bar of secondaries that just kind of really, that is almost always present. It almost always has smudgy marks on the chest and kind of a cowl of smudgy marks across the nape once it gets out of that first cycle plumage and starts going into second cycle plumage.
So
Andrew Haffenden.
So I could have gone with my default goal right off the bat and been correct.
Yes, Andrew Haffenden on Facebook points out about the bills on the two comped herring gulls. And I did that on purpose just to show how the bill size, we've got 3 herring gulls up there and 2 ring bills and a Cali, how the bill size is really variable. And you really need to not look at bill size and use that as a defining point because it can be all over the board. You got to put all of the pieces together when you're looking at gulls like this. So
This is what happens when Greg chooses the birds. We talk about gulls for 20 minutes. You're welcome.
Not anymore.
Crowd. We give the people what they want.
We do give the people what they want. And we were only talking about gulls for 8 minutes.
Like
so
minutes.
okay, this one comes
decidedly
from
not a gull.
Decidedly
this is a weird bird.
This is a weird bird.
It's the angle. It's the softness of the photo. It is the plumage that I don't think any of us are especially familiar with. Hard to get a read on the bill on this thing.
Yeah,
hard to tell whether it's big or long. Can't see the feet. Big feet, short tail, long wings. Those are always good things.
If you look closely at the bill, you can see that the bill is open. So and you can see the yellow.
Oh,
yeah, you can see the yellow.
It's an optical illusion. That was not what I imagined. In that picture.
So we can see pretty much how big the bill is. the bird is facing slightly away from us.
Yeah.
But that black head and gray body and a white throat, like a whitish throat,
Mm-hmm.
that really messed with people on
Yeah.
the group. And I looked at this bird, and I was pretty confident I knew immediately what it was, and it had nothing to do with plumage.
Mm.
Um, but that black head and the gray body and the whitish throat, everything. Um, People were asking if this was a juvenile, recently fledged eastern kingbird, and I could see that.
I would have
The
guessed Canada
picture.
Jay before Eastern Kingbird, but it's Bergen, New Jersey. It's obviously
Yeah,
not
not New Jersey
Canada.
in summer.
Yeah.
Although, but
Right, in the
Canada, I
winter, that
mean,
would be pretty wild.
yeah, I mean Canada, but yeah, I mean, yeah. Anyway, so let's just take a look at what I think it is.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right here.
um, and the lower picture, I tried to brighten it up a little bit, and increase, well, color corrected. I think the original photo is too blue. I think
Mm.
it needed to be warmed up a little bit. Tried to sharpen it, but the thing that immediately stuck out to me, and Nate and I were talking about this before we went live, is the bird is walking, and that inset that I have there is of the foot. And you can see the very strong foot with the hind toe and the way the bird is walking. And that just immediately says starling or blackbird to me.
Mm-hmm. It's certainly not kingbird. Because we were talking
I,
about it. Like, I don't think I have ever seen a kingbird on the ground. I've seen, well, they might land
I've
on the
seen them on
ground
the
to like
ground,
get
like on
some mud, or
beaches
like
and
I've seen
stuff.
scissor-tail flycatchers and stuff on the ground, but they don't walk.
They
They
can't. I don't
sit
think they
and they
can.
pop. That's what I was thinking. I don't think they can walk. Like flycatchers, just in general, don't go to the ground very often, with a few exceptions like phoebes and cattle tyrant, obviously, and things. Well, there's a bunch of neotropical flycatchers that spend a lot of time
Yeah,
on the ground as well. But in the ABA area, I should say, they tend to have relatively kind of smallish feet, and they don't. I mean, they're always perched. Think
yeah.
about it. When's the last time you saw a
If they have to
flycatcher that
move,
wasn't an eastern phoebe on the ground, or any
if they,
phoebe on the ground?
and even a phoebe, which has fairly strong
They're
legs for a
walking.
flycatcher,
Yeah,
if they have to move even 5 inches,
they're hop. Yeah,
they're flying,
they're
they're
hopping.
fluttering.
Yeah, yeah.
But one of the reasons I picked this is because, like last week with that Tanabeak yellow-rumped warbler,
Mm-hmm.
2 weeks ago, this is how a photo can really fake you out with a common bird that you
Yeah,
know well.
yeah.
But a bad photo, whether it's a back of camera grab, or I'm not sure what this was, could have been like through a car windshield.
Mm.
I don't know.
Screen porch.
Yeah, whatever.
Mm.
But it plumage wise, the gray and all of that, the tail length, the wings, and everything fits for a fledgling European starling.
Mm-hmm.
But that black head and the gray body, that's weirdness, and I'm attributing that to the photo itself, not the bird.
Yeah,
I think that if the bird if there were multiple photos of it moving around, that the
it
perception would
wouldn't look
change.
so discordant. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, and there's a lot of young starlings around. As I said early on, I did my breeding bird survey this morning, or one of my breeding bird surveys this morning, and ran into a bunch of starlings, and there were more of them around because there are babies around, and yeah, I mean, they don't look like much. They're kind of this, dishwater gray, with a big bill and strong legs, and
but
short
they
tail,
will let
long
you know
wings.
they're
That's all
around.
starling stuff. Yeah, they make a lot of noise.
They make a lot of noise. And another point to remember with recently fledged birds, is the bill in the bird in question on the left. It looks small, but when birds hatch, their bills are not full size. Their bills grow,
Yeah,
and they
frequently.
grow pretty
Yeah.
quickly. But for the first week or two that they're out bopping around, and it depends on the bird. Some like ibis can take weeks. The
Mm-hmm.
bill is shorter.
Yeah, I was thinking of
Pelicans,
herons too. When you see herons in a
herons,
rookery, baby herons, they have short little bills.
they have
Makes
short
it
little
easier to feed them.
bills.
Yeah.
And so if you get those birds that are recently out of the nest, and again, bill size at that age, it's variable, and it's hard to really ascertain that bit of the structure when they're so young. But one thing I've noticed is that for the most part, birds are born with very strong feet. I mean, the feet seem to be like the biggest, strongest part when they're hatched, and especially some of the more precocious ones, like gallinules. These tiny little birds with gigantic feet.
Gigantic full-size feet. Yeah. Yeah, like adolescents, the adolescent humans, the feet grow first and then everything else kind of grows into it.
Yeah. So our bird in question here is a European starling. Pretty fresh out of the nest.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to go to Virginia now. And this one I think is going to be all east of the Rockies. I went through a lot of stuff, and there wasn't a lot from out west. That wasn't things that we've done recently, like house finches and things like that. I couldn't find anything that was.
Well, this is a bird that is found across.
This bird is found out west. Absolutely, absolutely. I saw a really cool photograph, I think from Colorado, where there's a stakeout yellow grosbeak, and they had a blue grosbeak and they got a blue grosbeak and a black-headed grosbeak on the feeder together in the same yard with a yellow grosbeak.
You just spoiled this one. You spoiled it.
Oh, did I? Ah, man. Well, the person who posted this was asking if it was an indigo bunting, because we have a bird with that's a finch type bill and blue on it. There's really not a whole lot of choices.
And honestly, indigo bunting and blue grosbeak are frequently found in the same sorts of places as well.
They are.
Both love those kind of shrubby, second growth, overgrown pastures. Again, I'm going to talk about my breeding bird survey I did this morning. Lots of blue grosbeaks on my breeding bird survey. It's one of the more common kind of open country birds where I live in the southeast. And once you know their song, they're freaking everywhere. But yeah, so blue grosbeak from indigo bunting, it's similar. It's a size thing. It's a structure thing. They both do this weird thing that cardinalids do, where young males don't get into their kind of full, kind of glorious, glowing blue plumage until they get to their second year. And so in their first full year, their first spring, you get these kind of splotchy birds. It happens with indigo buntings. It happens with blue grosbeaks. It happens with all the buntings for that matter. Yeah, but the differences are going to be largely you're looking at the size and structure of the bird, and the bill especially. They don't call it a grosbeak for nothing. That bill is quite gross, meaning large in French. So yeah, if you see one of these birds with a massive bill, you know it's a blue grosbeak. You don't have to wonder. If you wonder which one it is, if you've got a bird that feels like a tweener, it's probably an indigo bunting, because when you see a blue grosbeak, that bill looks absolutely huge.
Absolutely, and it's if you just look at the overall sort of structure of the bird and the pose that the one in the middle is the bird in question. The pose that it's in right now in this photo is really, it's common. It's like when you're driving down the road,
classic blue grosbeak look.
It is. Yeah. They get up on a wire or the top of a little shrub or something, and they stretch their head up, and they've got that kind of
crown.
Yeah, and they've got this kind of big-headed. It's a unique shape, and indigo bunting just doesn't have as big of a head or as big of a bill.
Squat, compact,
and it's a little more compact. Yeah. Exactly, more like a house finch. As Nate said, the bill size, if you can obviously see the bill well, there's really no question. It's hard for beginning birders sometimes to see that difference, and that's one of the reasons I like bringing this one up every summer, because at first it's hard to see. You're not familiar with the feel of the two, but once you see it, once you get it, it's pretty straightforward. A couple other things I want to point out about blue grosbeak is blue grosbeak that we see often when they're perched up like this, they also kind of swish their tail back and forth, and it gives a different impression, but also the undertail coverts. Now, I picked this particular indigo bunting on purpose because its body plumage is starting to come in, and it's got these mottled undertail coverts, but that appearance is only for a short while in the summer as these birds are coming into plumage. As you said, they come into full plumage in their second year. Blue grosbeak, even in full adult male plumage, female plumage, it always has, as you can see on the right, that heavily mottled undertail coverts. Those dark, they're kind of grayish, brownish, and that's always there in pretty much every plumage. And if you can see it, it's a good field mark. But for a small amount of time, indigo bunting can look quite similar, but it's just not as well defined as far as the undertail coverts go. And as I've said a few times here, there's very few passerines that have mottled or patterned undertail coverts, and so that's a good way to kind of knock out what it won't be.
I love a blue grosbeak. I love their song.
Yeah,
That's kind of that chimey kind of warble, rambling kind of thing. It's got like this real kind of neat kind of full sound to it. That's really different than some of the other birds that have a similar, like summer tanager and things like that have kind of rambly, warbly songs as well.
And that's a species that's really increased its range in the last 30 years.
Yeah, I believe it. Moving northward. Yeah.
When I was a kid birder, we had to drive 300 miles south to get them for sure. And there were a couple places 100 miles south where you could get them. Now they're found to the northwest and up into Wisconsin. And they're
I remember when they were really pretty rare in southern Canada, and they're regular in Ontario now. And even up into like Manitoba, southern Manitoba. Yeah, this is a wild one, Greg.
Pennsylvania.
This is a classic summer birding, matty, nasty looking molty thing that looks like one thing and turns out to be another.
Well, yep, and there's two tells here. But it's down in the stuff. It's in the grass. The sedge, and it's got its tail cocked up, and it's brown, and it's got a thin bill, looks kind of lean and lanky. The person who posted it asked if it was a house wren. What else?
This was a black and white photo, Greg. Well, there are reasons why it wouldn't be even with a black and white photo, but if it were a black and white photo,
it would be even more difficult.
Think that as well. It would look. This bird is down in the brambles. It looks like there's some blackberry there. That's where you see house wrens, or northern house wren, I should say now. But it's funny because sometimes when you get a photo of a bird, and you've been birding long enough, you kind of make a snap judgment in your head based on what you likely think it is, just like based on feel, gestalt, vibes, whatever you want to call it. And this one, you make a snap judgment, but it's like an itch in your mind. It's like, God, it doesn't quite fit that. And just glancing at this photo, you would be probably justified in thinking that this is sort of this is a house wren. It looks a lot like a house wren, but you pull in, you look a little bit closer, and does it have yellow in the tail there, Greg? There's yellow in the tail. House wren does not have yellow in the tail. It isn't yellow anywhere. It's got a dark banded tail, not a yellow tail.
Yeah, well, let's look into that. So the bird in question is a beat-up female common yellowthroat.
Beat up.
And that's what happens this time of year.
Yeah.
And as you
breeding,
pointed out,
and it can let it go.
Yep, the little bit of greenish that we see in the tail there, being amplified by the colors behind it, but it is there. That is a tell. The fact that there's no barring anywhere on the flanks or the undertail coverts or anywhere, that pretty much does away with all of the wrens.
Any of our wrens,
Um,
yeah, all of
you
our
know,
wrens have really intricate patterns on their flight feathers.
on their flight feathers or their undertail coverts
Yeah,
or somewhere that's visible. This bird also has pink legs, and at least, oh, I forgot to put northern in the house wren. That's
yeah.
a recent
Get with
change. The house
get with the
wrens have been
program.
split. Yeah, the house wrens have been split, and it is now northern house wren. Um, but yeah, it's the oh, and the pinkish pale legs. House wren has dark
Yeah, it's a
legs.
warbler thing. Yeah.
And yellowthroat has those big, um, really strong pinkish legs. Um, Jelko says it looks like a shrew's head on a bird, and it
A
kind
little
of
bit.
does.
A little bit. Yeah.
It kind of does.
Yeah, and you can
Um,
see the eye ring too, which is,
yep.
yellowthroat does have a bit of an eye ring, not a real thick one, not a real prominent one, but there is an eye ring there, as you can see in the composite as well, whereas house wren doesn't. House wren has a pretty plain face.
Yeah.
And you really, the differences in the bill really stand out too once you see the composite. The wrens have such skinny little narrow bills that are pretty unique,
Yeah.
um, whereas warblers tend to have thicker, broader based bills, especially a bird like a yellowthroat, which as warblers go is pretty wide ranging in its food preferences and abilities to get
Exactly.
it. So um, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, you'll notice that the warblers that we have that kind of stick around um, a little later in the fall and kind of are a
mm,
little more general in habitat. And I'm thinking of things like yellow-rumped warbler, palm warbler, common yellowthroat.
hmm
Those
pine,
the pine. The bills are all
hmm
kind of the same in
yeah,
heft
the
and
more all
size and
purpose,
everything.
yeah,
And when you get to the more specialized ones like Cape May and blue winged and Nashville, the bills become thinner and more pointy and different
red
shape.
start is like a flycatcher bill, so
Red
it's
starts like
insect
a
eating
fly.
bill, yeah, yeah,
It even has rictal bristles.
hmm
Um, yeah, so that's yes, I am agreeing
Nelson
with
Pascuzzi
you.
on YouTube asks, "Is the undertail looks yellow? Is that a light artifact or real colors?" It's real. There's yellowish on the underparts, but I think it's amplified by the
Yeah,
by the.
I I
I mean, it's
didn't
greenish. It's kind of a greenish color
I didn't
underneath it.
mention that. I think I agree with you that I do see some color there.
Hmm
Um, but again, in photos like this, it's really hard to tell what you're looking at sometimes. So
Yeah,
you really
that's
have
true.
to interpolate. Um, and I just this week on What's This Bird, there was a picture that I looked at on my phone, and I always forget when there's anything that you have even the slightest doubt.
Don't look at it on your
Don't
phone.
say anything when you're looking on your phone. If you care
Yeah,
enough, look at it on a bigger screen and get a better
yeah.
look at it. Um, so there was this picture of, I don't know, 2 dozen birds way high up in the air, and they looked all black. And I looked at it on my phone, and blah 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 blah. And the conversation's going American white pelican with a few other things thrown in, and I'm like, boy, those just look like cormorants to me. So I just absentmindedly put in double crested cormorant. Da, da, da. Um, Discussion was cormorants don't do that. Well, yes, they actually do. They're up there all the time, flying around high. I've seen them kettling in groups. But then when I looked at it more closely, I could see the front heaviness of American white pelicans in a
Mm,
really weird um, backlit shot that made them just look black.
yeah,
Uh,
backlit stuff. That'll tell
and
you
they're in
every
all,
time.
that's the thing, your brain can fake you out because like the birds are in all different positions facing the
Hmm
camera, and you think, all right, one of them's got to show some white if it's a white pelican, but no, the camera just it adjusted the contrast to the point where it didn't matter what the colors were, it just
Yeah,
made them black.
yeah,
And that was a rather extreme example, but cameras do that. They have
yeah.
their own little brains, and they
Yep.
see the colors and contrast and things, and they adjust it no matter what you do. And it's kind of up to the photographer a lot of times
Yeah,
to
our,
go
our
in
brains are
after the fact.
our brains are really good at filling in those gaps. That's
Yes.
one of the pattern recognition is a hallmark of human intelligence.
Yeah.
But the camera's not as intelligent as the human brain, so like an actual photo would probably have done you better there. We have a couple questions from YouTube about the bill. Tim Callback makes a nice point. He says it's a ratty yellowthroat, but how do we tell it's a worn adult female versus a scruffy juvenile? Mike Davern asks, the bill looks so long. Notes that that is odd. I agree with both of those things. I think they're both kind of connected here. My guess is that if it were a juvenile, we would see a little bit of the gape. Even now, it looked like a bird that would be relatively recently out of the nest.
I
Do you
would,
think
I would,
otherwise?
well, I don't disagree with that. But this time of year, we're only in the second week of June here, getting into the third week of June. And I realize some of these birds, they're breeding in May, but the juvenile or the first formative plumage this time of year should be really fresh. I mean, unless this bird was physically beat up, it should have really fresh plumage and look more like the bird on the right than what we see. And the adults, like I said, post breeding, they've migrated up here, and they're getting ready to molt again before migrating south. And I think that just the molt timing, it seems to me that this is an adult female that's just kind of beat up. I think we would see it would look fresher. It looks like the feathers are worn away from the base of the bill, which
That's what I was going to say about the bill
makes the
looking
bill
odd.
look
That
bigger.
does happen a lot with warblers.
Yeah.
So much of what we think of as so much of what we see as the bill is hidden, like on the face. If you get a look at a warbler in the hand or something, you can kind of brush those away, and the bill looks really weird and frequently much longer and larger than what we see in the field. And when those feathers are being replaced, or they get stuck in like some sticky sap, as happens to a lot of warblers in the late summer in Southern California, when they're feeding on eucalyptus blossoms, those feathers can get pulled out, and it can make the bird look really odd. And I agree, Greg. I think that's sort of what's happening with this bird a little bit.
And the angle too. I mean, all of the above.
All of the
because the bird's kind of got its head. It's not. It's if you look at the bird on the right, the common yellowthroat, it's got its head turned away from us a little bit compared to that angle. But I think all those things add up.
Did you intentionally choose a really ratty looking house wren too? That house wren looked like it's seen better days.
Yeah, ratty and blurry.
Yeah, equivalent house wren.
Okay, this is neither ratty nor blurry. And these are two pictures of the same bird in New York. And Nate and I were talking about this before we got on. Yes, it is baby bird season.
There are certain things that that flag this to me as a baby bird. One, the gape. You can see the yellow gape going into at the base of the bill, going into under the eye. And just Greg, that formative plumage, that first plumage that they get is so weird. Like the texture is often very strange compared to the plumage that it is going to get at the end of the summer. So young birds are going to, these first year birds, these birds that hatch this summer are going to grow two full sets of body feathers. One, their first kind of pin feathers, definitive plumage. It's definitive, right? Or form, what is it? Juvenile. Juvenile plumage.
Well, there's
name.
Juvenile and then first.
And then they molt again as we get close to fall into what we call first year plumage or whatever, first alternate.
And juvenile plumage. There's a great article in Birding Magazine about juvenile warbler plumages, and there's probably 30 photos in this article, and you pretty much wouldn't be able to recognize any of them if it was just held up in front of you like, what is this? And things like palm warbler and Blackburnian and blackpoll, and they look nothing like any of the plumages in almost all field guides. And that's because these birds have plumages that they hold for a very short time on the breeding grounds. And then before they start to wander around away from the breeding grounds, they molt into what we think of as juvenile or first year or whatever, first winter.
Though
plumage.
the flight feathers, you can see on this bird, the flight feathers, the wing feathers, are going to be the feathers that this bird holds on to through the fall and next spring, and won't replace until more than a year from now. So they tend to
Yeah.
get pretty rough in these I guess it'd be second year birds at this point. But looking at this bird, as you said, Greg, it's barely recognizable as a warbler. You might be justified
I
to
don't
think
even know
it
that
looks.
I don't even know that it's
I,
a warbler. I mean, I
it's a
guess it
junco. It
is.
looks a little junco-y.
I mean, it's got kind of a
is it a
short bill.
flycatcher?
It
Yeah.
could be a flycatcher.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, it's really hard to tell with baby birds like this, what they could be. And we, like I said, we get a few of them every summer, and thankfully this person took many photos of it,
There.
which stayed on the
and
bird
watched it.
and supplied many photos of it. And exactly. That's if you get a bird that you're not sure of like this, and you get the opportunity. And a lot of times, I mean, the birds don't want to be around you as much as you want to be around them. They don't want to be around you.
Yeah.
And so, but if you get the opportunity to spend some time with it and study it, eventually you will get some clues that will lead you to the identification. And in the case of this,
the parent will come and feed it.
well, all right, let's cut to the chase.
I mean, that's the clue, right? Why even try to figure out what these birds are? Just stick around and wait, and the parent will come, and that will make it easy.
Okay, here's a testament to how confusing this baby bird is. I don't know what's happening on YouTube, but on Facebook there has not been a single guess.
Oh, we have a red start. We have someone from New York who knows that it's likely one of 3 species of warblers. I don't know what warblers breed at Jamaica, but one of 3. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, red start, sure, it's got that.
Tim Callback says got to be a warbler. He's right. I think it is a warbler. Tim Callback.
Yep.
Hey Tim. Yeah, definitely a warbler. George Munoz
I would say
says flycatcher.
it looks like a warbler. It looks like a warbler to me, but if you had
it's most like a warbler, but if something else showed up and started feeding it, I wouldn't be surprised.
If you had to force me to prove why I think it's a warbler, I would spend a lot of time rambling without any. Yeah. It's just I know. I know because I've looked at a lot of them.
Yeah.
But
flycatchers have black. They have black legs for the most part.
Most flycatchers have black legs. But juncos have pink legs.
Waxwing could be waxwings have black legs.
No, waxwings look more like starlings when they pop out of the nest.
They have really short tails. Yeah,
they have short tails, and they have
kinglet. We have kinglet.
Yeah, I mean,
could buy a kinglet. I could buy
it's kind of out of range for a kinglet, but
impossible.
Not impossible, I suppose. But I mean, Jamaica, that's on the coast, right? That's that's lowland beach back. You think about that habitat. Well, anyways, like Nate was saying, the best way when you see a bird like this is just stick around because the parent's gonna feed it.
Hey,
hey. And we have
that bird has no tail, or barely.
That bird has very little tail, very little tail. It's a yellow warbler.
Yeah.
And
I look if I hadn't seen this photo, I don't think I might have guessed yellow warbler, but
eventually we would have got to it.
To myself, yeah.
I think eventually we would have got to it and felt okay about it, but not.
Yeah.
If somebody posted a picture of the adult, we would change our mind.
Mockingbird. I might have called it a mockingbird.
Maybe mockingbird. Sure.
Yeah, catbird. Yeah.
Catbird doesn't have wing bars, but again, in that that first juvenile plumage, those plumages are so different. I don't know off the top of my head exactly. Well, I suppose because of the wing panel, a mockingbird would show some white in the primaries because they have the, as you've been saying. The flight feathers they almost come in adult form.
Yeah, that's true.
But so we have a yellow warbler.
Baby yellow.
Yes,
warbler.
There's yellow edges on the flight feathers that we can see here from underneath. Andrew Havenden points out, but boy, can we see it there? I don't know. I mean, they look pale. I mean, I suppose if you know that they're yellow, maybe you can see that, but they don't look different from the wing bar color. So, I don't know. But then,
even the presence of nominal wing bars on that bird is a bit of a red herring because
it is
like yellow warbler doesn't have wing bars.
No, it doesn't, and it loses those wing bars pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least they're not that bright.
Prominent, yeah, or the feathers on top of them grow over them. And
All right,
they're
wait.
hidden.
Andrew says, nope, you can see them on the upper. I
Yeah, I mean, sure.
I mean, yeah, I mean it's kind of yellowish, but yeah. Again, maybe I'm just
It almost looks like golden winged warbler. Or, I'm sorry, golden crown kinglet. You know how they've got the yellow lines on the flight feathers.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Tim
don't know. It's
Callback
just
makes the important point. They don't look like this long enough for field guides to publish them.
correct.
Yeah. There is a baby bird field guide that just came out a couple years ago. That is interesting and perhaps useful.
Yeah.
But
And
again, like you don't see these birds all that often, and just stick around and wait for the adults to come and feed them.
yeah, and again, maybe I'm duped by how off colors can be in photos that are posted on the inner tubes, and especially Facebook, because the Facebook the way Facebook processes images really messes with color, especially reds. But anyways, yes, underneath there we can definitely see the yellow that Andrew is pointing out, and we can see it well. So that and the big pink feet and everything else, but of course the adult makes it a yellow
Nelson
warbler.
Pescuzzi notes that yellow warblers, redstarts, and common yellowthroats are the three warblers that breed regularly at Jamaica Bay. So those are your guesses.
Yeah. Now if now another thing too, like somebody I if somebody said red-eyed vireo or one of the warbling vireo maybe, but they have gray feet. They have gray feet, and we can see the nice pink feet on this bird. So, yeah, we've got a few minutes left here, you guys. If there's anything you want to talk about, any questions you want to ask,
before we get to the listener choice part of the program, we just will note that we are part of the American Birding Association, and if you enjoy these free resources that we help to provide, we're planning on doing some other stuff this summer as well. Greg and I have got big plans. Hopefully, we'll get to them. Please consider
I'm planning on getting to it
and support.
If you like this, you'll like what we're going to be up to later.
Like what we're going to do. ABA.org/join. You can learn about all the great benefits of being a member of this wonderful organization.
Yes, and if you enjoy the wonderful American Birding podcast with our host Nate Swick, or our magazines, if you like our online content, our blog and field ornithology posts, I think one of the things that people shouldn't sleep on is the North American Birds regional reports, which they're coming out all the time. I mean, you go to our website, click magazines, you go to North American Birds, and you can see those. But it gives a really nice, easily digestible snapshot of regional happenings, and it really helps me gain understanding into status and distribution of places that I'm not familiar with, and it's a really cool resource, and I think a lot more people should check it out because I think they'd really like it.
For sure. We do have a couple questions on YouTube, Greg.
Sure.
Elizabeth Salvatore asks, what can we do to help birds with the upcoming heat wave in the eastern U.S.?
Provide water.
Exactly. That was my first incarnate. If you don't regularly provide water, please do so. Even if it's like one of those dishes that they put under the bottom of flower pots, or Tupperware, or if you keep water, make sure that water is fresh and clean, and get it out there for those birds, because they'll probably use it in the upcoming days.
Put it in some shade, and yeah.
Buddy Campbell asks, where can I get an ABA cap? ABA.org/shop, right?
No, the shop is currently being we are currently redoing the entire product line. We are there's nothing broken, but the product line is being worked on with new what's the word I'm looking for? The people we buy products from, sources. There's a word there. Yeah, but there's a word. Vendors. Thank you, vendors. We are sourcing out new vendors for our logo products and other things. And we're very close to relaunching that. So just, hang tight, and you will be able to get ABA branded gear in the very near future. That is coming up soon. And I think that just about does it.
Asks, can you talk a minute about Avalist? Do you have opinions about Avalist? I think it's... I was a little disappointed. I expected... This is probably on me and not on the people that make Avalist. I'm still looking through it, still trying to figure it out. I think there's some inconsistent splits and lumps. Again, this is me. I need to look at this stuff and dig into it a little bit more. That's just first impressions. I think that the effort is laudable, and I appreciate all these taxonomists getting together and trying to come up with a unified global bird taxonomy. Makes you realize how difficult that has been up to this point when you look at the Avalist. That's my short and dirty. I'm still trying to come up with some opinions on some of the individual decisions that they made.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what Clements eBird does down the road with those, and then also NACC and ABA. What we do, but we tending to follow eBird Clements more closely these days.
That's what we personally use, even though it's different from the ABA checklist. That's a whole other issue. Mostly what he said. Rumor has it. This is rumor. eBird will be holding off on implementing the Avalist changes until next year, just to kind of get some more agreement with some of the things. Because there's a few things that they're going to do that Avalist hasn't agreed on, like the warbling vireo split and a couple others. So I think it's going to be at least another year before your eBird list is Avalist compliant. But I do think that will be coming at some point.
And there's also a lot of name changes that seem rather benign, but really when you think about it, and we went through like the sage grouse, Gunnison grouse and sage. It's like
I think there's going to be we've had different we've had different common names for birds on different sides of the Atlantic or different English speaking areas for a long time. I think that's going to continue. We may come to a global shared taxonomy, but we're not going to come to a global shared English common name dictionary.
This is true.
Yet ever, maybe. Who knows?
Yeah.
There's too much difference. Look, you can pry my black-bellied from my cold dead hands.
It's a gray area, and now we can start arguing about...
It's not a gray plover. It's just a gray area.
It's a gray area, and now we can start arguing about how to spell the word gray, which...
Oh, that's another
I'm looking at you, Ted Floyd.
I will not use an E.
I actually prefer it. I wish we spelled it that way. It makes more sense to me. Anyways, that does it for us. Thank all of you for joining us here again, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and we'll come up with
maybe we'll get some photos of great grey owls and maybe some grey partridges.
That's it. You're out. Done.
We'll take this
Bye.
We'll take this offline. Adios.
Bye, folks.